Well, that was certainly the most damning loss of the season, wasn't it? And now, where do the Steelers go from here? Good afternoon, everybody. A good Monday afternoon to you all. Today is Monday, November 20th, 2023. My name is Corey Crisan. Of course, you're listening to the Southside Beat, as we are every Monday through Friday, 3 until 3:30 Eastern, here on DK Pittsburgh Sports. Chris Halleck is out today. He is not feeling well, so we wish him nothing but the best in his recovery. 13-10 was the final. Cleveland over Pittsburgh at First Energy Stadium off the shores of Lake Erie. The Steelers fall to 6-4, but let's not sugarcoat anything today. Let's not pretend like things are okay, because as of this moment, this is rock bottom for the Steelers. At 6-4, this is as low as it gets right now. And it all starts, and a lot of the conversation, if not all of the conversation today, is going to surface around Kenny Pickett. And I'm going to do my best solo here to throw some comments on the screen. This is, as always, on a Monday after a Steelers loss, a sort of a therapy day for you all. And for me, it's a chance to take my perspective of the game. And when Chris Halleck is here, he does the same thing. And it's to kind of figure out where the Steelers go from here. To be honest with you, after what I saw against the Browns, I genuinely have no clue where the Steelers go from here. Now, it all starts with Kenny Pickett. 15 of 28, 106 yards were the stats that QB1 put together against the Browns' number one ranked defense. Now, we could sit here and say number one ranked defense all we want, but this was way more than who was on the field for the Browns and Mike Tomlin's lack of wanting to talk about how bad his offense is right now. And quite frankly, how big, there's Chris Halleck, by the way. Everything's bigger in Texas, including the stomach bugs. There's Chris right there. We wish nothing but health and happiness for Chris. And Joe Vlog says, can't blame Chris falling sick with this type of performance. Let's go right to it with Kenny Pickett, okay? I'm not ready to jump ship, okay? Let me paint this whole thing out before the masses chime in. I'm not ready to jump ship on Kenny Pickett yet. I know a lot of people are. I know a lot of people are ready to see Mitch Trubisky or even Mason Rudolph by this stage, or looking forward to 2024 already when it comes to Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields or, dare I say, Josh Dobbs. People are ready for that. And I'm assuming that a lot of you in this chat, the 79, 85 now viewers that are in this live chat with me, and those that are listening on playback, are ready to jump ship on Kenny Pickett. And right now, I don't blame you. B. Phil says right here, none of it matters with Canada. Now, I am on record. I have been consistent in saying this, and I'm going to remain consistent in saying this. In order of people that need to go, Matt Canada's at the top, and Kenny Pickett is behind him. Darren, thank you for the 5 gifted. We appreciate that. If you got a gifted there from Darren, make sure you claim that. Make sure you give him a thank you for that. Now, look, Evan here says Canada needs to be the fall guy. He might be the fall guy, but I think also it is still apparent that the coordinator is handicapping the quarterback. Now, I don't want to absolve Kenny Pickett of anything, because he really can't be at this point. He can't be. A lot of this is coming back to Kenny Pickett. You read Chris's commentary and his chalk talk and his analysis of Kenny Pickett and his season. You've read it. You've heard him talk about it on this very medium, and I'm in agreement with it, okay? Kenny has his problems, but now they're magnified. But now there's more problems. And now, instead of seeing this grand offense that we all saw in the preseason, and everybody was so enchanted by the preseason, that's gone. Now we're here saying Kenny Pickett has regressed instead of progressed. And that's a problem. Kenny Pickett might not be the guy for the Steelers' future beyond this season. We are taking a bit of this season to figure that out. Think of the narrative going into this season. It was about Kenny Pickett's growth, right? The defense was going to be the defense. TJ was going to be TJ. Alex was going to be Alex. They bring they got Minka Fitzpatrick. They bring Pat P in. They draft Joey Porter Jr. They bring in and overhaul the inside linebackers room. There really wasn't a concern about the defense, and the defense held Dorian Thompson-Robinson to 13 points. Okay? Let's not sit here and act like Dorian Thompson-Robinson was the second coming of Joe Montana. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, 24-43, 165 and an interception. Let's not act like DTR is amazing here in this circumstance. But what can also be true is that DTR played a better game than Kenny Pickett, and that's a problem. It is a problem that Kenny Pickett is still being handicapped by the coordinator, although we're not going to absolve Kenny Pickett of his sins, so to speak. We are now seeing that Kenny Pickett has problems. We are now seeing that maybe, just maybe, Kenny Pickett is not the answer for the Steelers in the future. Maybe. I'm not going to jump ship quite yet. I'm not going to go out and say, this is it. But it's really getting hard to defend a guy that they drafted first round and that has not progressed. There were communication issues everywhere. Everywhere, on all levels. From George Pickens to Deontay Johnson to, again, trying to throw into the middle of the field. Kenny Pickett was awful on all accounts on Sunday. No disputing that. The problem that I have from that standpoint is that I think Mike Tomlin would rather talk about anything else besides his offense at any given time. You read DK's column after the game, or I'm at least assuming you have, and if you haven't, after this show concludes, in between when I get offline and when DK and Ramon come on for the Ramon Foster show in about 55 minutes, make sure you read DK's column after the game. The Steelers' offense is Fight Club. We're not allowed to talk about Fight Club. We're not allowed to talk about the Steelers' offense and how bad it's been and how bad it is. And by this point, it's not just Matt Canada. Yes, Matt Canada is not the answer, an offensive coordinator, and should be fired, should have been fired. We're not second-guessing that. But now the question is, can the Steelers definitively go into the offseason and say Kenny Pickett is the guy going forward? That's what we've come down to. That's what we've come down to. And I will sit here and say right now, I've seen the reports, or not reports, excuse me. I've seen the commentary about go look at Kirk Cousins, go look at Justin Fields, go look at Josh Dobbs, bring back Josh Dobbs. Part of the problem with that now is the way that the Steelers are structured as of right now. Keep this in mind. They are spending $10 million total on their quarterback room this season, in the roundabout, 10 to 11 million, roughly. $10 million on three players, Mitch Trubisky being the highest paid of the three. Kenny Pickett still being on a rookie contract. That goes a lot into the structure of how this team is built and constructed. It is why the Steelers were allowed to go out and get Keanu Neal and three new inside linebackers and repay Alex Highsmith and do all of this stuff with respect to their defense. They spend a boatload of money on the defense and they draft the quarterback, get him on a rookie contract. You get Ben Roethlisberger off the books and coincidence with that. Re-sign Mitch, re-sign Mason to back him up. Good situation to be in on paper. And then Kenny Pickett can't play. Rather, he can play. He just can't produce. So I don't mind the idea of looking at Kirk Cousins or looking at Justin Fields or looking at Josh Dobbs or whoever it is in the offseason, but the Steelers got to find a way to pay that quarterback. So if you want to go look at a quarterback in 2024, Darren says it right here, Michael Penix Jr., you might have to go back into the draft, and this is a deep quarterback draft coming up, led by, of course, Caleb Williams and Drake May. But here's the problem with that, the catch-22. The Steelers aren't bad enough to get one of those guys. Remember the viral clip? I don't know how long it's been now since this clip came out. Maybe someone in the chat can hook me up here. Remember the clip of Mike Tomlin talking to Chase Young when Chase Young was still with Washington? And Tomlin saying, we don't want to stink bad enough to go get a guy like you. Essentially like that. We don't want to stink bad enough to be able to draft a guy like you. The Steelers are never going to stink enough to draft a Caleb Williams or a Drake May or any of those top 2 guys in a given year. Now, it just so happens that Kenny Pickett at pick 20 falls into the Steelers' lap in 2022. And we have talked about that quarterback class of 2022 and how bad it is overall. Pickett might be the best guy in that class. Although, if you look now, Sam Howell leads the league in passing yards. Don't look now, but it's true. And the rest of the quarterback class, Pickett, okay, Purdy, average at best, and then really not much of anything else. And keep in mind, Carolina and New England went back into the well for quarterbacks after that. So they go into a bad quarterback draft class. They go get the quarterback because Ben Roethlisberger retires. You need a quarterback. They go get Kenny Pickett. Okay, great. Do you have the requisite coordinator to develop him? No. Do you have the requisite coaching to develop him? No. Is Mike Tomlin an offensive guru or offensive mind? No. This is the result of all of that. This is the result of all of that. G.A. Ruiz says, Bo Nix. Look, one thing has to happen over the offseason. Whether it's decision A or decision B. Do the Steelers proceed with Kenny Pickett? That question has to be asked over the offseason. And if they don't, then you got to go get the guy in the draft. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Robert says, Big Ben, we need you. I don't think Big Ben's coming off of that couch. Irving says, Kenny went 5 of 8 in the first half yesterday. Yeah, but for like 30 yards. Like, what's the point of completing 5 passes if they're dinking and dunking to Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren and they're throwing short patterns? What's the point of that? It's not creative. It's not imaginative. Like, for as bad as Kenny has looked and for all of the warts that he has, which are more than we have anticipated up to this point of the season, like, the offense is still poorly designed and the coaching is poorly executing. Like, the players are poorly executing whatever the coaches are trying to do, but what the coaches are trying to do is not imaginative. It's not exciting. It's not fooling anybody. It has not fooled anybody since Matt Canada took over as the offensive coordinator of the Steelers 2 seasons ago, or the beginning of 2022, rather. It's not exciting anybody. It's not fooling anybody. It's not creative. It's not imaginative. This will cost the Steelers a lot of primetime games. Mentoring men from that perspective, I'll take 1 p.m.s over 8 p.m.s all day, every day, and twice on Sundays. That's just from a journalist perspective. I like the early games. By the way, Pitt gets an early kickoff. The first noon kickoff of the season for Pitt coming up this weekend. And how about that? It's the first and only. By the way, quick programming note. As you notice, I am solo today. Chris Halleck is out. And on Thursday, we will not be doing a show. Thanksgiving Day, obviously. We are going to take our Thanksgiving holidays and ensure that you all have time to spend Thanksgiving Day with your family and, of course, watching football and everything associated with that. So no show Thursday. Chris will be solo Friday if he is well enough to come back. I will be en route to Durham, North Carolina for Pitt at Duke, the regular season finale for the Panthers. Dino Tomlin about Matt Canada. Yeah, I mean, Dino went to Maryland and then transferred out. How about that? Now, all right, I'm going through the comments here, and again, I'm doing the show solo, so let's see. Okay, Evan says, what's your take on the Bills? They fire the OC and then pop off. What's keeping Canada? Like, I don't think Matt Canada is here beyond this season. I think the writing's on the wall for him, and a large part of that is obviously the offense by the numbers is bad still, and now you have to look at Kenny Pickett and say, well, this guy's not doing any good for Kenny. Chris and I have talked about this before, okay? Chris and I have talked about this before, where yes, Matt Canada is holding Kenny Pickett back, but also Kenny Pickett is holding Kenny Pickett back. He is not making the requisite steps. He is not developing the way that he should. And I don't think firing Matt Canada mid-season or today or tomorrow is going to fix anything. Just like I don't think benching Kenny Pickett going into to Sunday's game against the Bengals is going to fix anything. In fact, I think it's only going to hurt some things, and at minimum for Kenny Pickett. I think it's going to be, thank you, Steelers Freak. I appreciate that. He says, Corey, you have the best personality for the written assault today. Thanks. Listen, I said this at the beginning of the show, and Chris and I say this every Monday. It's therapy in some ways for you all listening in. You're allowed to air your grievances. You're allowed to be frustrated. You know, Damon, please do not text and drive. Damon says, I have so much frustration to get up, but I'm driving. You can only type at stoplights. Please do not text and drive. Do not message and drive. We appreciate you listening and having it audio only, but make sure you put that phone down while you drive. Solid reminder there. Mentoring Men said Kenny does not have the it factor, period. I mean, we could have said last year at moments that he did because of the fourth quarter comebacks, and that's the only thing he has really going for him right now. He's not making the right reads. He's missing plays. He's completely missing concepts, too. I mean, you can look at multiple plays from that game yesterday and see that Kenny's not seeing them. He's not seeing them, or he's flat out ignoring them. Let's see here. I'm going back into the comments. Darren asked about Najee. Okay. Najee Harris's game or comments after the game. Very, 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 very concerning to me. And not because of what he said, because what he said was true. What he said was true. Here's why it's concerning to me. Is because Najee, who is usually pretty bottled in, so to speak, who is usually kind of reserved and calculated when he speaks and tiptoes around the bigger things, Najee did not hold back yesterday. And believe me when I say, Najee's voice is respected in that locker room. Najee is respected as a leader of the offense, in an offense that really doesn't have many other leaders. Think about this. Who are the players on this roster who have been to the top of the mountain? What I mean by that is have won a championship. Isaac Seumalo, Landon Roberts, Patrick Peterson. Correct me on others, or correct me if I'm wrong. Seumalo and Roberts for sure. Seumalo with the Eagles, Roberts with the Patriots. Now, Peterson hasn't won Super Bowl, Cardinals and Vikings. But where are the players on the offense, other than Seumalo, who have winning experience? Where is the winning experience on the offense? It's not there. It's not there. Sebastian says Kenny's the leader. He's allegedly 25 years old, second-year quarterback. Allegedly, he was elected a captain this year. Allegedly, he's the leader. Eagles went to the Super Bowl. They didn't win. You're right, Spice. I should have said went to or played at the highest level of the highest level. That's really what I should have brought. And I think Seumalo was a backup when the Eagles beat the Patriots in the Foles game. So again, someone please correct me if I'm wrong on that. I'm partially going off emotion, partially going off of the locker room closed at 2 p.m. and I ran home, had a quick lunch, and hopped online. It's a tough day. And look, I understand this perspective too. Coming from Mr. Malvo here. Kenny's trash. Kenny isn't it. Benching will either make him get better or he'll flame out. And you know what? I understand that school of thought. I understand that school of thought. I don't know what benching Kenny does for Sunday. I don't know what benching Kenny does for the Cardinals game, the Patriots game, the other Bengals game, the Seahawks, etc. I don't know what benching Kenny Pickett does. I don't know if that gives him a better chance to win on Sunday, and that's a problem. That's a problem. Evan says Deontay Johnson was defeated in his interview today. Look, I was in that scrum. I was holding my phone up, and you can see the video on this very website, DKPittsburghSports.com on YouTube. Deontay looked like he didn't want to be up there. Now, I'll give him credit for being up there and talking about issues and talking about it because he did decline to speak after the game on Sunday. But there are no good feelings coming from that offense. And it sounds like, earlier in the season, we've heard we're going to have a meeting about this. We're going to get together and figure it out. Like, you can only do that so many times before you're pounding your head in the pavement, right? You can only do that so many times and have so many meetings and have so many different ways of saying, we need to play better. How can we play better? Before you actually go out and play better. They can have meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting. The facts of the matter is they've gotten outgained in every game this season. They have not put up a 400-yard game. Tommy DeVito has more 3-touchdown games than Kenny Pickett does. I saw a stat from CBS Sports today. Let me pull it up real quick. It won't take me long. And it was really damning. I put it in our feed on DKPittsburghSports.com. Here it is. Notable quarterbacks with more touchdown passes than Kenny Pickett since the start of last season. Davis Mills, 17. Marcus Mariota, 15. Matt Ryan, 14. The problem with that stat is Davis Mills has only attempted one pass this season. Marcus Mariota and Matt Ryan have not attempted passes this season. Mariota threw for 15 touchdowns last season. Matt Ryan threw for 14. And Kenny Pickett, since the start of last season, has thrown 13. That's so damning to Kenny Pickett. That's damning to Matt Canada. That's damning to the Steelers offense. And a big issue to me is that Mike Tomlin doesn't seem to want to address any of it. It's near past the point of return for me. No return, rather. It's more past the point of no return. But again, I can't see moving on from Kenny Pickett until you move on from Matt Canada first. Get Kenny Pickett some appropriate help. Get him an offensive coordinator that is appropriate to his skill set. I know that a lot of problems are resting on Kenny Pickett. And there's no ignoring that anymore. A lot of fans, a lot of people, a lot of pundits will want to ignore that because of the enchantment of the preseason and because of Matt Canada and the scapegoat quotient of the whole thing. Okay? Sebastian says, do you think if things keep going this bad, star players will want to request to be traded? I mean, I don't see that happening. There's still contracts. There's a lot of happening. And yeah, Roy over here says about the venue. You know what's funny, Roy, about the venue is that it was never about the venue when Ben Roethlisberger was like, 22-2, like 22-3-1 in his career against the Browns. It was never about the venue when Ben Roethlisberger was torching the Browns and all of that. 13-9 starting record, 13 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, says, I am happy. I haven't looked up the full stats, but I believe that. And look, Kenny Pickett, it's not like we haven't had a sample size of Kenny Pickett. It's not like we haven't had, just 11 games of Kenny Pickett or whatever it is, 10 games of Kenny Pickett by this point. He's had 20-plus starts in this league. 20-plus starts in this league. And he hasn't shown much. He just hasn't. Miss Pittsburgh says all three of them need to go, meeting Kenny Canada and Tomlin. I think it's reasonable to feel that way. I think it's absolutely reasonable to feel that way. And DK wrote more about Mike Tomlin, which you could read right now at the top of the website on DKPittsburghSports.com. Matt says, is it possible that Kenny doesn't trust the offensive line and is hurrying himself? I think there's part of that, and I think there's another part that Kenny never really, one of the big knocks of him coming out of college was that he bailed out of pockets too quickly. Let me rephrase. He bailed out of pockets too quickly. He was apt at running, and sometimes that got him out of trouble, and sometimes that got him into trouble. Now it's getting him more into trouble, and that's become more of a problem. William says Jaylen Warren rocked. Jaylen Warren getting 9 carries yesterday was criminal. Absolute criminal misuse of a running back that was hot running the football. That was unbelievable with running the football and, of course, broke away for a huge touchdown. There was zero reason for Jaylen Warren to have fewer than 10 carries in that game. It's inexcusable. It's really inexcusable that Jaylen Warren only had 9 carries. Steelers International says, Kenny always bailed out too early and favors the right. He also had a lot of protection in college, and I wonder how Kenny will do in the pocket isn't there like it was at Pitt. And that's exactly part of the problem. However, it's not like the offensive line has been any good either. Throughout, let me rephrase that. It's not like the offensive line has been good all season. It's been average. It's been roller coaster. It's been really good some weeks, bad some other weeks. Like Lyle says here, Canada ran out of plays. I just don't think that they're building off of any of the plays they made up in the preseason. Made up might be bad use of wordage, but you know what I mean. Like, I don't think they're building and getting creative off of what led them to the little success that they had at the beginning of the season. I think this offense is very much vanilla. It's very much the Saturday offense that gets criticized. I just think that it's not sustainable on Sundays, and any quarterback would be failing under this system. And that's why I can't totally jump ship on Kenny Pickett yet. I want to see Kenny Pickett with a real offensive coordinator, with an offensive coordinator that is brought in with the purpose of getting the best out of Kenny Pickett. I don't believe that Matt Canada is that guy. I haven't believed that Matt Canada is that guy. Irving asks, is Miles Jack in the city yet? I'll say this. Miles Jack did not have a locker in the Steelers locker room. I know there's been reports about Miles being on the south side for a physical today. I didn't see him personally. I was over there for quite a few hours, so no look at Miles Jack quite yet, although the reports are out there that he certainly could sign with the Steelers practice squad and give him some assistance at inside linebacker. Now, does he come up from the practice squad? I think it matters. I think it's contingent on Michael Walker and how they feel about his communication and about his ability playing inside as a coverage linebacker. But look, there were coverage busts and there were miscommunications from the defensive side. Certainly the second play of the game where they had to call a timeout because of substitutions. I think you have to at least give him a look. And if he's in shape and if he's ready to play, then maybe you get him in there quicker than you think. B. Phil says, problem is there will be no possible system change until next year. And Tomlin will probably still be here. I mean, that's part of it. And there's no second guessing that Matt Canada should not have been the offensive coordinator of this team this season. Think of it this way. If the Steelers got rid of Matt Canada over last offseason and Kenny Pickett was performing like this still, then we could definitively say more that it was Kenny Pickett and it's been Kenny Pickett all along. And maybe that absolves a little more Matt Canada. Or if he's performing this way, then we could say, well, the new offensive coordinator didn't work. We got to give Kenny more of a shot. Like, I think right now, the way that things are going, it is hand in hand, but it's becoming more of a Pickett issue than it is a Canada issue. Now, that being said, I don't think there's much, if anything, that Canada can do that could improve Pickett, so to speak, this year. I think the guy to fix Kenny Pickett is not in this building on the south side. And yeah, Kenny Pickett did get outplayed in some retrospect by DTR. I'm going to go to some more comments here in the last couple minutes of the show. You guys have been awesome today. I appreciate all of you for chiming in on the YouTube chat, for listening to me rant and rave, perhaps a little too much over Kenny Pickett, but I think it's warranted. I think it's deserved. Steelers Freak says Kenny missed open receivers 5 yards out is not Canada. Pickett's not an NFL quarterback. I understand that too. Steelers Freak also says all D head coaches are having trouble. The NFL changed. See, like, I think you're seeing. I'd have to go look at the points per game averages year after year, but I feel like some of the scoring is down in the league. But that being said, the quarterback play's still up. It's still a quarterback league, and it very much is. What does running a reverse every game have to do with Kenny Pickett? I mean, again, it's hand in hand. Kenny's bad, Canada's horrible. That's what Steelers and Salsa de Mexico says. And William says, anytime you want an event, we're here for you. Look, I can only say so much, like, that hasn't been already said or that most people don't agree with. And I'm sure that some of you agree and don't agree with. Like, at this point, it is what it is. And I understand if you're ready to jump ship on Kenny Pickett. I totally understand it. I'm just not going to do it because I need to see a change in the system before I see a change in the quarterback. And I think it's difficult to ask them to go get a Kirk Cousins when they just invested a first-round pick on a quarterback, rather, in last year's draft. Like, I think if you're going to do that, you have to go back into the well for the draft. And again, a large part of it is that the Steelers constructed their roster to pay a lot of members on the defense and keep the offense cheap. I don't see them going expensive on the offense. I appreciate you all for tuning in. I appreciate you all for chiming in. I appreciate you all for being here. Thank you so much for listening to this live edition, a Monday edition of the Southside Beat. We will be back tomorrow and Tuesday, of course, 3 p.m. Eastern here on DK Pittsburgh Sports live on YouTube. Reminder, you can check us out on playback on YouTube or on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, where podcasts are found. Hopefully Chris Halleck gets back tomorrow. We did our best with what we had today. And, of course, a little ranting, a little raving. I think we all needed it. A palate cleanser, so to speak, after a 13-10 Steelers loss to the Browns. Thank you all for listening. DK and Ramon coming up in about 30 minutes here on the same channel where you found this. Jim says, if you're watching Chris, feel better. Yes, Chris, I share that sentiment. My name is Corey Crisan. Remember to follow DK Pittsburgh Sports on Twitter at DKPGH Sports. Of course, subscribe to our feeds. That's a big thing. You can download the DK Pittsburgh Sports app for free. You can turn on notifications for the Steelers, Pirates, Pens, Pitt, Penn State. Anytime I'm on the south side and Deontay Johnson says, hey, I'm frustrated, or hey, we got to communicate better, that notification's going right to your phone, and that's 100% free. So get the couple plugs out of the way there, and we will head out and on to Tuesday. We'll talk to you tomorrow with Tomlin Tuesday. Should be interesting. Have a good one, everybody. Peace out.